short story of how
Podcast.
somehow in this COVID situation, my typing has become worse and my dyslexia
How'd you do that?
increased. I don't know. I spend more time going back and right-clicking fixing words than I do writing them poorly, obviously. I probably could install the habit of getting it right the first time. Just haven't done that yet. Also, I've been doing more handwriting. A friend of mine has been hosting this writing prompt thing in the mornings. And I watch myself invert letters or just like not write certain letters that are in words. That started in my early 20s.
What prompted the handwriting thing?
The missing stuff, or just like trying to write again?
No. Just like why did your friend has been doing this thing? Like why did
my friend's a writer? My friend's a poet, and she's a novelist, and so she was doing. It's a really cool process. She has us do a guided meditation that's sort of leading to a prompt that is in the poem that she reads at the end. So she does this guided meditation for about 5 minutes. It says connected. Then she gives us like a few words prompt, and then we write for 20 minutes. And then she comes back and she reads a poem that inspired the writing prompt. It's been this really great practice.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
That actually feels a little dojo-y. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that the dojo has like one person saying a thing and then everybody else kind of goes through the same process. But I love the idea of like, go do your own work and then come back and then see what different brains came up with the same prompt, That's cool.
We don't do a sharing of the things. I guess some of the weekends there was a Zoom thing where you could share like a few words and get feedback of what happened. But it's been nice to have kind of a writing practice again. It's more morning pages is what I've been doing. I haven't been writing.
Sure.
In that sense, but yeah.
Yeah, so I had a big insight this last week about writing too, actually. I had just this meditation where this very clear voice was I had this metaphor of like thoughts and ideas that come into your mind that you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. I'm going to do something with that. And then they drift off. And I thought about them like dying, that those things are precious and intangible and ephemeral, and they are a gift from the other side. Yeah. And if you don't grab it and be like, okay, I'm going to do something with this, then it just floats off. And there was this sense of like sadness and mortality almost.
Yeah.
And then I just had this thing that was like, this is why you need to write down your thoughts. This is why journaling and that sort of thing is so important, because it's a place to capture those things and let them out of your head.
Yeah. Past version of me from probably 13 to, 29 or so, always had a pen in my pocket. All of my pants had a pen stain, and my car seat had pen stains because I always had a pen in my pocket for many, many years, and I haven't in a while. And I would have a notebook nearby, and whenever something I'd write it down. I was one of those people who used to write prose on napkins from bars and backs of postcards and other like flyers that I would find.
Yeah.
And yeah, I miss
a really good habit.
It is nice to have a specific time.
Yeah.
I remember in songwriting, when I was in better form with my songwriting practice, when I had a specific time each day that I would sit down, that's when the muse would sort of show up because it knew when to find me. All right, should we start this thing?
Let's do it. That's why I wanted to say recording.
Yeah. I would like, hold on. Since my taskbar keeps blocking the place where I can comment if anybody actually talks to us, I'm gonna raise it. I'm gonna raise the bar. You ready?
You go.
All
you
right.
Start. Yeah.
Well, hey there. How are you? Welcome to Enlightened Couch Potato. I am Adrianne Gunn, here with my friend
Nicholas Rave.
Yeah, and this is the show where we things about stuff that are about nearishness of television, movies, and empowerment.
Nailed it. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, sometimes you ever like get the sense that your thoughts are kind of like a sneeze, I just didn't quite know what I was gonna say, but it felt like a sneeze, and I'm like, it's awkward, and I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah, the analogy that came to mind was like 3 people trying to go out of a door at the same time. And like that's what that looks like.
I felt
So
like that.
you want to try the tagline? What's the tagline? You want to do it?
Oh wait.
Yeah.
Bumblebee.
So what do we do here in this podcast?
How to watch movies and television for maximum psychological and spiritual development.
Nicely done. I think you got it.
Yeah.
It took a little while.
I just have
it's a mouthful.
I don't have to sprint while I say it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no race. There's no race. So, Nicholas, what are you watching?
Not as much this last week. But then again, as I sat down and I said that to you before we got started, I was like, oh yeah, but I also watched that. And I also watched this. Yeah, I don't know. Even when I'm not watching that much, I still watch quite a bit, a lot. So I watched a couple of shitty movies, which we don't really need to talk about. But I did watch one I thought really excellent movie. And then we've been watching Farscape, which is the ongoing series that we're still getting through. There was a good episode of Farscape that I could dig into and talk a little bit more, but I definitely want to talk about the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spoil it for you or other people.
Pixar thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Pixar came out with a new movie that unfortunately got destroyed by the quarantine, like didn't make hardly anything at all. So like Pixar is going to have to declare a loss. It's really sad because it's actually quite good. Like Pixar has kind of 2 tiers. They have like, oh my God, like Up, Inside Out, Wall-E, Incredibles, even the Toy Story movies, especially the third and second one to a lesser extent. And then they have like fucking Cars and even worse, Planes. Most people don't even remember there was a Pixar movie named Planes. But you got to keep in mind with those movies, they're like printing toy money. That's what those are. Is like we come out with Planes and there's $1 billion in profit on all the licensing and toys and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever. Those movies are fine. But Pixar, when they nail it, wow, they nail it. Like they understand the depth of what storytelling can really be. And so there's a new movie came out called Onward. And the premise is that it's like modern times, but fantasy world. So there's like elves and centaurs and fairies. But like the centaur is a police officer and drives around in a cop car because the centaurs have everybody's lost their way, everybody's lost magic, and the whole movie is about bringing that back. But it centers around, I mean, this is all kind of right at the beginning. It's probably in the trailer. I never saw the trailer, but it centers around this main character who's the younger of 2 brothers, and their father died, and the younger one has no memories of him. The older one has a few memories, but they get it's the younger one's 16th birthday, I think, and they get a gift that is basically a quest that they can bring their father back to life for 24 hours. Because he said, I know he knew he was going to die, but he says he wants to meet them and see the adults that they became. And an epic quest ensues. And the way that they incorporate like actual magical principles into like the lessons that the character learns are the lessons that we all have to learn to become more in alignment with magic, whatever you think that means. I don't mean like card tricks and stuff. I mean, Yeah, how to watch movies and TV for maximum psychological and spiritual development. So I can't spoil the end, but oh my God, it was good. I heard reviews that kind of left me going like, it's probably going to be mediocre, but I was like, oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Nice.
We all cried like nonstop through the movie. I watched it with my son, my 10-year-old, and he was feeling it too, and like occasionally he would look over and he'd be like, "Are you crying again?" I'd be like, "Yes, yes, I am." And like I made him come over so I could hug him at one point, and like, yeah, there's also a really beautiful brother relationship stuff too. And so for him to be watching it as a big brother, like I think about that. Like I think about growing up in a household where we're constantly talking about the symbolism of movies and stories, and like he can see that they affect us in this way. And I'm like, how would I be different if I didn't think movies when I was a kid were just an escape? That if I thought that it was more than that. And so when I saw him get that this movie was about him, I'm the big brother.
Yeah.
The little brother is going to look at me the way he looks at, and like, like I could see it shift things for him. And I mean, he's only 10. I think you get better at this stuff when you get older. Like I think the more you learn about stories, the more life experience you have, if that life experience doesn't make you bitter and like closed off,
right?
I think that movies can be more impactful the older you get. Like you just don't have as much to base it on. I mean, that's when you see a baby like watch colors on the screen, it means nothing to them. So if you think about that progression, like, I wonder how much more we're going to get out of movies in 10 years.
Sure. Just thinking about. So I posted on our page, I posted a link. Somebody reunited the cast of Goonies. And I was thinking about your epic quest in this movie,
yes,
and the brothers' relationship, and this idea of getting more out of as an adult with experiences, we can integrate these ideas and concepts deeper, and we have more to reflect on. I was in a conversation earlier today in a group where we're reading the book The Gifts of Imperfection, which is one of Brene Brown's earlier things. And this is a book that happened just before her TED Talk, so before she became the authority on things and was rewarded for her work. It's an interesting thing to read from somebody in the battle, in the fight, before they've been rewarded.
Before they exploded. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in it with you. And we were talking about this sort of like childlike energy, the idea of going on a quest, that like the feeling of energy and magic, believing in magic and that being in your bones. And how many movies out there are around the theme of, like the Santa Claus, believing in that and believing in magic and remembering that
Hook.
Yeah.
Hook is all about like he's lost it and then he has to, like, that's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And I was thinking about creating a kind of sense memory connection to that energetic self inside. I shared a story from my athletic days, from high school basketball. And as I was sharing it, I could feel all of my cells remember what it felt like to like find somebody and pass them the ball that they didn't even know I saw them and they were open. And that, like, that space that we can get to when we have so much joy and energy that we just suddenly have to spin in a circle, or we suddenly have to sprint, or we have to jump up and down and make noises with our face, but we don't know why. And that returning to these different points in our life where we were powerful. A good friend and I both landed on the age 8 was one of our favorite times, because we had just had the capacity to do whatever it was we thought of.
Yeah.
We could, like, look at a thing and think that it might be cool to do. And we had the balance, the coordination, the strength, the whatever, flexibility.
You're tall enough.
Yeah.
For most things, right?
Yeah. And so, and it's before like weight dispersion, hips, boobs things for the two of us, because we're both female-esque. And so just that sense. And I've had so many conversations with clients about the fact that we can actually like return to that sense inside and actually carry it with us, even just like recalling those moments and feel it inside to be able to utilize that kind of energy when we need it. Like good Lord, wiggly layup 3-pointer assist Adrianne could be supremely great at doing taxes.
Yeah.
There's no reason why she wouldn't show up to that. Yeah.
Yeah. In my meditation this morning, I was jumping back and forth across this, the imaginary divide between everything is hopeless and everything is perfect. Or like everything's working out and everything's going to be amazing and everything is going to blow up and explode. And I was like, I was intentionally experimenting with jumping back and forth because it emphasizes for me that the reality is neither of those two. Like it's not one or the other. It's not true that everything is going to work out amazing and everything's going to be beautiful and perfect. It's also not true that everything is going to explode. The reality is, who fucking knows? But one of them puts you in a better state.
Yeah.
To be better prepared to respond to the nobody knows that what's going to come. So it's like, it's this idea that like, they say that people who are depressed are actually better able to perform on certain like assessments of things. They're more accurate in their read of what's going on in the world when you're depressed. But then that would make you think that it would be rational to be depressed.
Sure.
Because you're more in touch with the like factual reality. But there's a rational argument for being delusionally happy.
Yes.
Or as Richard Bandler would say it, happy for no reason. Like that to me is the real key, is that that you don't need it to be either one. Just be happy, not because everything's going to work out great, but just because. Yeah,
the really depressing news about optimism is that it leads to a longer, more joy-filled life.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks.
Exactly.
It's my
okay, I had another thing. Can I say a thing?
Yeah, wait. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't remember. I had thought that was going to happen.
So I had a news point. We've never done this before, but I read something that I thought was really interesting because I think it signifies a sea change in movie experience. So in addition to watching Onward, I think the week before maybe we watched a movie called Trolls 2 World Tour, and it was good. It wasn't Onward good, it wasn't Inside Out good, it was fine, but it definitely had depth. It's not like just like things falling on each other and loud noises like a lot of stupid kids movies. It had like a metaphor that it was trying to play, and I actually liked how broad it painted with the paintbrush was very broad, and that I think is actually good for kids because they can be like, oh, I get it, it's a metaphor. So anyway, turns out where does it say that? It turns out that so they released Trolls World Tour video on demand. They released it for like $20 to rent.
Yeah.
And it made 95 million in rental fees since its release 3 weeks ago. And unlike with box office, where studios only earn roughly 50% of the ticket sales, the studio is seeing approximately 80% return to it. This means the sequel has already earned more revenue for the studio in just 3 weeks than the first film earned domestically in its entire 5-month theatrical run. So basically, Jeff Shell, the head of NBC Universal, said the result for Trolls World Tour have exceeded our expectations and demonstrated the viability of video on demand. As soon as theaters reopen, we expect to release movies on both formats. So I heard a lot of people saying that this quarantine thing might be the end of movie theaters forever, that there will be like the Alamo Draft House, that kind of place. There'll be like, you know, the ArcLight experience. There'll be places you go where it's like actually a good theater going experience. But the big chains and stuff, like as soon as the movie studios are like, oh, wait, we make more money by not giving it, well, then fuck you, movie theaters. We don't care at all. So, yeah, I think this is the end. Like, I think that's it. Like, the NBC Universal will start it. Yeah. And if they're doing it, every other studio is going to have to follow. So I think movie theaters, they might open back up for a little while and then die, or they may never open back up.
I think it'll be interesting because that the movie theater experience that's really, really fun about being surrounded by other people who are cheering and freaking out with you, and that energy is still the same thing of live shows and live concerts. That's a giant question mark about when we're going to be able to return to it. And I get the sense that, so the first things that are going to come back, the drive-thrus are coming back, drive-ins,
drive-in movie theaters,
drive-in movie theaters. People are taking all of these abandoned.
My car is very comfortable. I like that idea. I will do that.
It's happening all over town. These are parking lots.
Have you ever done a drive-in?
Yeah. A few times.
So you like hook it up to your radio or whatever?
Yeah, you turn into a particular channel. And
they've got to have better setups now, like sync it up with Bluetooth or something. Because
maybe, yeah. But the other thing is that you get your food delivered
to the car. Or I mean, you could also, or do they not let you bring food in? They probably don't.
Yeah, I don't know. So drive-ins are coming back. So that's an interesting experience where you
I'll take
talk with other people.
Yeah.
So that's coming back already. And then whatever our culture lands on, whether our concert going is going to have people distance at seats, or I don't know what's going to happen there. That's a big question mark. But I have a feeling that once we are safely able to be in groups, there might be a mad surge for experiencing these things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the social distancing stuff is going to happen. That's not really what I meant by this. What I meant by this is financially, as soon as movie studios start releasing big movies where the same day it's in the theater, you can pay $20 and rent it at home. And there's going to be a percentage of the people who would have gone to see it at the movie theater. They're going to be like, fuck it, I'll watch it at home. And as soon as they do that, the profits of the movie theaters are going to drop. Movie theaters are already not doing very well.
Yes.
So at that point, the movie studios are going to be like, well, let's just put all of our, I'm not saying there won't ever be movie theater experiences, but I think they're going to become a lot smaller and a lot more niche and probably more expensive, which is okay with me because I'd rather go to the movie theater. I'd rather go to the kind of movie theater where they take your phone away. Because then it's a good experience for all of us instead of going to the typical sardine can where there's someone kicking the back of your seat and somebody's talking on their phone and there's screens shining and somebody has a camera in their lap because they're filming it to put it online. And so I'd rather have it be more specialty. I'm not even complaining about this. I think it's great because there's a lot of movies that I want to see sooner and I don't want to go to the movie to see it.
Sure. I really do think, given that we talk about the things that can allow a movie and a watching experience to deepen your own transformation and what you get out of it, there are so many instances where being with other people while I'm taking in the information has allowed it to sink in deeper, that we're all sharing the experience.
Yeah.
We can talk about this movie a whole different time, but one of the movies that was even more powerful for me was because I was surrounded by other people was Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman.
When I went and saw that, there were 2 people in the theater with us.
My theater was full. and there were people speaking French, so not from Portland, Oregon, I'll just say. And it was interesting to sort of just feel and sense the different levels of like breathing and where people were laughing and when people were sort of cheering and getting into it, and having this risque movie be shared and hear the resolve and having the resonating of the whole audience with the characters made it even more powerful. And I hope that whatever we return to, that becomes this a space of more reverence.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It's special. I
think it will. I think this is a good direction. I think that what it's going to mean is that shitty movie-going experiences are going to go away. And then there will be a lot less people who go to movie theaters, but the people who go are going to really care about it. And they probably will have to jack up the price a little bit, but it will be more like going to the theater, you know? And like people dress up. Have you heard about the movie theater where where they project it on the ceiling and everybody has beds?
No.
Yeah, I think it's in LA, but you go in and like everybody has like a queen-ish size bed, and you could have two people. I do not know how they make sure that people are probably doing stuff.
Yeah. I went to a theater.
People do that in movie theaters. I mean, that's like a thing. Like,
had too many stories to share there. I went recently. there was a theater space here in town that has like couches and love seats and big like heart-shaped things. And
is that McMinimans or?
No, it's a Studio One, I think is what they called it. It's a giant space, fancy dinners, fancy meals, sort of like a living room theater vibe, swanky club vibe as you come in. And then I fortunately like went with friends that I liked, so the person on the love seat with me was somebody, because it'd be weird to like sit next to a stranger on a love seat, right? They were like soft floopy blankets. It was amazing.
Yeah. I love that. I want more of those kinds of experiences.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about the budget thing. So the things that I watched this week, I watched a lesbian flick called Bex. I watched this rom-com called Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. And I watched The Messiah this week. And
that's a combo.
Right? Very different.
Yeah.
Thing. Let's talk about The Messiah for a second. What's interesting is it's this idea, CIA officers investigating this gentleman who just shows up and seems to be performing miracles, and people begin to follow him, and they're calling him the Messiah. So there's this question of, in modern time, this idea of like the messenger arrives as a messenger from God, and the impact that has. And what's really interesting is that it's sort of like there's like some end of days themes around this kind of thing. And in this current instance where culture is shifting, I kept wondering like, what would happen if a Messiah figure did show up now? And this particular project, it's on Netflix, and they filmed it in there's Syria, US. It was like there's some religious monuments that I don't necessarily know the name of that were in the, like it's globally shot. And because of that, it's beautiful. And apparently they chose not to renew the series, even though the person who was writing it has an idea of where he wanted to go with it. And there was a little bit of controversy.
Now I don't know if I want to watch it.
What was interesting is there's a really, really interesting unifying message of shared humanity. And one of my favorite shows that Netflix, one of their first original shows is Sense8, which was also globally shot and ridiculously beautiful and incredibly provocative and unifying in its exploration of humanity across the globe. These are both ridiculously expensive things to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's worth it. I think it's worth creating something that's provocative and different. I think, what is our favorite? The OA, the show that we like, that's also difficult to write. It takes the creator a couple years to write the thing. And then it's really very strange. And it's, you know, it's like Netflix is getting into a routine. I start joking sometimes when I'm watching stuff that if you want to have something produced, if you're out there and you're wanting to write a movie, figure out a way that it could be all shot in one room and still be entertaining and make sense, because that's what Netflix is funding right now. It's a little ridiculous. Like there's some scenes of like Lost Girl, Winona Earp, Dark Matter, whole bunch of this Girlfriend's Past, Ghosts of Girlfriend's Past was shot in like 2 locations, and they made it work. Just like, that's beautifully lazy. It's like, what happened to budgets? What they have, like, if you can shoot it in 12 days and there are only 3 locations, we will make it. So that's kind of fun as like a challenge for a writer. It's like, how do we say, oh, well, this evil world-ending event is just going to happen in your mind, so therefore it's going to be located in the place where you always hang out. Right? It's in the bar. Of course, this demon from another universe is going to fight us in our own bar, because the bar is now just the representation of what's familiar. And it's an internal demon that we fight together. That's just like...
They did that in Picard, and it was so stupid and so obvious. Ugh. God, I hated that show. That kind of thing can be done well, though. I saw a movie. Can I tangent here? Sure. Have you ever heard of a movie called Bug?
Nope.
2006. Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon. You know who Michael Shannon is?
Not really.
He played General Zod in Man of Steel, the new Superman movie. He played in Shape of Water. Did you see that one about the sea creature? He's amazing, and he plays like crazy angry really well. Like he's one of those guys who can bring a kind of scary that, like, he doesn't need to be big. He doesn't need to be like holding a gun. He can just look at you and you're like, oh my God, I'm scared. Like he's terrifying. So there's this movie called Bug that is based on a play. So one location, not too problematic. So it's all takes place, I think almost all takes place inside this house, but the house keeps changing through the story. And I'm assuming that's what they did to the set during the play. It is speaking of movies that have deeper symbolism, it is a profound demonstration of what it's like to be in a relationship with a narcissist who's gaslighting you.
Ooh.
And it's challenging to watch for sure, really? But it is a descent into madness that is I found it to be profound, and to just be like, yep, this is how this happens. Like you follow it every step of the way, and even though it ends up somewhere ridiculous, you're like, yep, I totally believe it. I totally see how this person could go on every single one of those steps and make all those decisions. Incredibly well written and well acted, and
nice.
It's awesome. Yeah. Good movie.
Speaking of narcissists, so the Ghosts of Girlfriend's Past. You don't watch this movie. We've both watched this movie, which is really interesting. It keeps me like, so the structure's fun, the container's fun. What if, much like the story of Scrooge, it's not the Night Before Christmas. It's not called Scrooge.
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol? Yes. So here's this story, Christmas Carol, put on a gentleman who is a man slut. What is he?
Womanizer.
Womanizing guy. Thank you. He suddenly is visited by girlfriends of his past to come to know that he should be a different dude. So you've got the structure of A Christmas Carol of the ghost showing up. That's kind of clever. That's a little kind of fun. Sure.
I mean, I could see it done well.
Yeah.
I could imagine it being done well and it being interesting.
So this is like a standard romantic comedy. And when I was watching it, I was realizing, have I seen like a romantic comedy in a while? I think romantic comedy's been dead for a while, because there used to be like the new girl. That's what they call her, even though
Meg Ryan,
Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Garner was one of these for a minute, where it's just like, oh, it's the new rom-com lead actress. I forget all the names that you have for these, like ingenues or whatever. Like, it was a big deal. Freaking Meg Ryan, like,
Meg Ryan was America's sweetheart.
Yes, it was this very, very important thing. And I think, thankfully, indie flicks may have killed it by having completely weird romances and stretching the dynamics there. I think television beautifully killed the theory that one could just do a 90-minute arc of love, because television shows actually expand on connection and how, you see the relationship after they finally decide to love each other. Meg Ryan, I don't know, famously said that she was on Inside the Actors Studio. She was talking about how one of the things that she loved about her movie where she plays an alcoholic, the name escapes me at the moment, but she was saying that almost all of the movies she was in before start at the beginning of a relationship, even before the beginning of a relationship. Maybe they kiss and then they have to figure out how the relationship, but the movie ends at the beginning for most of the movies she's in.
Yeah, happily ever after. That's where it goes.
Yeah. And then this particular movie starts long after the romance and the relationship. And it was the first movie that she was in where they figure out this whole, like, what's next? Pull back the scene. I don't know, I'm missing half my words. But so here's the shape of this movie. So here's this guy who is...
We're back to Girlfriend's Past.
Girlfriend's Past. So from some child, he at some point was a young person who had trauma. His parents die, and he's in love with this girl. And he strikes out and chokes, and some other boy asks her to dance, and he misses that moment. And his uncle, who takes care of him, is this very, like, womanizer playboy kind of guy, and teaches him how to be with women. And he's like, I never want to be hurt ever again. So I'm going to make these new choices and follow what my uncle said. So we've got this classic, beautiful, relatable essence of how wonderful young children make decisions about who they're going to be based on just like a sliver of the picture of some truth. Ouch, something hurts, and now I'm going to do something, believe something about the world, and then never hurt ever again.
Are you actually trying to get something profound out of the Girlfriend's Past romantic garbage pile?
It happens. So that happens to all of us. So we all find ourselves having some sort of hurt when we're young, and then coming up with a decision. It's like, you know what? I'm never, ever going to be hurt again. Divorces are hard. I'm never, ever going to get divorced. Relationships are hard. I'm never going to be. I was watching some other show where somebody learned that infidelity destroys lives, and so now that person doesn't have a good relationship with his own penis and his desire. Tons of things are decided in this youthful place. So this guy gets really, 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 really good at being that protective of himself. And there's one instance, so he's like returning to this wedding, his brother's wedding, right? And he bumps back into that girl that he was in love with when he was like younger, the one that got away, right? And for some reason that we don't know about, she still has like this claw in her side where he affects her in some ways. And they apparently had some romance. What's really neat is that all of the redeeming qualities that would cause her to also love him are all showcased non-verbally or explicitly in a montage of what we must assume are an entire list of all of his good qualities.
So there's no actual character development. There's just a montage of
them connecting.
Trust us. They have a relationship. He has redeeming qualities.
For reasons, we didn't write any of them, but most of the movie is just kind of a giant ass and he's a big curmudgeon. But surely,
but he's beautiful. It's Matthew McConaughey. Isn't that enough?
It wasn't for me. I just kept noticing, why does she like him? But I just like, I'm saying yes and I'm allowing the magic to happen and taking me on an adventure. In this one building. The whole thing so inexpensively made. Congratulations, good for them. Yeah. And
we're gonna need you to cut that budget down by another 10 million. Sorry.
At some point, he realizes that he hurt her over time, and he learns some lesson that he should be a different person. And he starts, apologizing at the end and saying some wonderful things, and then magically somehow they get back together. And I keep thinking, it just doesn't. I mean, obviously that's not realistic because you don't just you're not in an inn at your uncle's estate and then magically get visited by ex-girlfriend ghost things and then have this, like, maybe that's a dream, but the idea that somebody would just because someone said that they would be better and they had a whole half a day of being less shitty, they'd be like, yes, this is a good bet. Here's a person who's completely in the last 12 hours worked on all of their childhood trauma, has practiced for at least 5 minutes engaging differently. What I want to do is get intimately involved with that person. That's smart. And it just reminds me of all of the 90s. I probably said it. The rule of the 90s was apparently that you could be a giant ass and purposely like cruel to people, but you would still be loved. So it's Roseanne, Seinfeld, Friends. What is that? The at As Good as It Gets, the Jack Nicholson thing where he's just a jerk the entire. Like, I actually grew up believing that I could just be shitty to a bunch of people and like my true friends and real people would totally love me. Apparently that's no longer true. As much as rom-coms are dead, the idea that you can be a giant ass and do fairly well, it's dying mostly.
Is that the male equivalent of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe it is, actually.
So the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is like, you can be a complete spaz and like not like, I'm just in the flow and in the present moment, and like everybody will totally love you. And he'll drop everything in his life. And the opposite of that is the complete jackass jerk, who's somehow lovable.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting. Maybe it's not actually interesting, but if I say the word interesting a lot, you'll think it is interesting that Matthew McConaughey and Jennifer Garner are the leads in this when they were part of the peak of rom-coms, when we would buy into this sort of thing. And those were the movies that you would like pay a lot of money. And they actually had budgets. Remember when rom-coms had budgets?
Like Runaway Bride. I remember that being a big deal. I think my sister saw, like, I remember seeing While You Were Sleeping, the Meg Ryan romantic comedy. Like, it was like on repeat. And I think I've probably seen that movie like 5 times all the way through. It's a good movie. It's a reasonably good movie, like good structure and like interesting stakes and all that. Do you remember that one?
I do. Why aren't we watching those again? Do you have a guess about why it died? Does anyone?
I mean, I think that it got tired. And I think it's probably a budget thing. It like you said, like an indie film thing can do that better. Also, there are still a lot of shitty romantic comedies that are released on Netflix and Amazon and stuff like
Christmas that. Movies. The rom-com still lives at Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, with the holidays in general, but I've seen them. I mean, like they're on there. There's some like, oh my God, like C-level movie things. You should go look.
Okay, I will go to that category.
Ask Liz because she knows some of them.
she used to write these things.
Yeah, I mean, she just watched one. I don't know if it was a crap one, but she just watched one this morning.
Yeah, I did, however, watch, and it was all right. So sometimes the gay and lesbian movies they get made, they also don't have much of a budget, and people will watch them because there's just so few of these kinds of movies that and you just kind of get used to them being a little bit terrible. So that's part of how I've developed this ability to watch things that aren't that good. So I watched a movie that
You're like, I'll take what I can get.
A little bit, and it's kind of guilty pleasure, I guess, in the same way that people would watch quirky sci-fi that's old and weird and cult classics and things. I was like, I'm just gonna drop into a funky, weird ass lesbian movie. So I watched this movie called Bex, and I swear to God, I wrote this movie. I mean, I didn't write this movie, but I did. I had the idea.
What was it? Bex?
Bex.
Becks?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So at some point in my life, probably after Sugar and Spice, which is the cheerleading bank robbing movie, cheerleaders who rob banks, I decided that Mina Suvari should be some housewife. Some movie.
I really thought you were going to say, I decided that Mina Suvari should be mine.
Probably ish. So then I was like, okay. And then I wrote this movie in my head because one of my favorite themes of any indie flick is somebody crashes and burns and then has to go home. So they go back to their hometown, or they go recuperate, or they have to go back to living with their parents. And that is my favorite like indie flick trope. The like prodigal smashes and crashes and burns and then has to like come lick their wounds back at home. So I
have a recommend for you based on that I bet you haven't seen.
Cool. So they combined that. So I wanted to write a movie where you like crash and burn and have to return to your hometown and return home. And then I also wanted to write a movie where a musician seduces a housewife. That is this movie. Bex crashes and burns out into the world like a failed relationship, comes back home and seduces a housewife. Also, there's really good songwriting and singing in it. It's somebody new, Lena Hall, something like that. I think she's a Broadway person. That's it. It was awesome. Right on. I practically wrote that movie. I was laughing my ass off in the middle of it. I was like, did I tell someone this idea? Because I almost wrote that, like I would have had a different ending, but I was like, I fucking wrote this in my head and arced this out. It saves me time.
I mean, it's probably great minds think alike, I guess.
Yeah. So what's the recommend?
So recommend on, in terms of like going back home, their life is wrecked, trying to get back on track kind of thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If it's possible to rent this or get access to it without seeing the poster,
okay,
or even seeing any previews at all, you would be way better off if you could go into it knowing nothing about it. The movie is called Colossal. It's got Anne Hathaway in it. And Jason Sudeikis in a wow, I didn't know Jason Sudeikis could act kind of role.
Cool. I don't know that I haven't seen it, but now with your prompting, I can't go and decide if I have.
Oh, damn. Well, I don't want to spoil any of it.
Right. No. I'll report back.
Okay, go and see if you can get it and watch it. because I would love to hear, what do you think that movie was about? Because it is not what one would expect.
Sure.
But boy, I love it. I thought it was wonderful. I watched it and then was like, Liz, you got to watch this. So I watched it twice.
Ew, a twice watch. That's pretty decent. Okay.
So in terms of, since we're talking about shitty movies before we wrap up, because you watched, what was it? Ghosts of Girlfriends Past?
Yes. Oh,
I watched a guilty pleasure Vin Diesel movie called Bloodshot. And I was expecting it to be garbage. I was expecting it to be worse than like Fast and the Furious, which it was, by the way. But I was expecting it to be like absolute trash, and it wasn't quite total trash. It actually had a couple of clever ideas. The special effects were pretty good in some spots, and there was some style stuff that was cool. The storyline left something to be desired, to be sure. But the thing that I just took away from it was, I was like, they keep trying to portray Vin Diesel as like, he's like super ripped, like, and he's in like really crazy good shape, like The Rock and stuff. And he just kind of looks like he's got some serious dad bod going on right now. And like, they keep cutting away from fight scenes and stuff to like literal CG models of him, because he can't run. Like, it's like, work for it, man. Like, I like Vin Diesel. He's got such an incredible voice, and like, he's not a terrible actor, although you wouldn't know it from watching this movie. He's very good at doing one thing in particular, but like, I don't know. I feel like when I see somebody like Hugh Jackman, like transform to play Wolverine, like that's a dude who's like, I am going to look like an action figure. Like, I'm going to look like a plastic model. I'm going to look like an anatomy poster. I'm going to look like you didn't know human beings could look like this, because that's how seriously I take this. And Vin Diesel just really seems like he's like, I really want to go back to my trailer and play Dungeons and Dragons. And I respect that.
Yeah. Did I tell you about my idea for a company?
What?
And a transformational process? So inspired by Angela Bassett and what's her name? What's her name? Terminator. What's the actress in Terminator?
Oh,
Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton, yeah.
Linda Hamilton and Angela Bassett. For Linda for Terminator, Angela Bassett for the What's Love Got to Do with It. They both were in their 40s, I believe. Angela Bassett may have been 38. And they got in such extreme shape for these movies. Angela Bassett got in such great shape that she almost got fired from the movie because her arms were so cut that the director was like, I don't know if people will believe that Ike beats the shit out of her. And Tina Turner was like, no, she looks amazing. Because first of all, if you're trying to get Tina Turner legs, that's going to take a lot of freaking work. She was like, no, that's not the point. That's not how abuse works. And she is amazing and looks amazing. And that's exactly why you need her in this movie. And so she backed her up. And I was just thinking of like, it would be sweet if there was a process where you could go and get trained by whoever trains the stars to pull off their action scenes and pull off, like, you get a nutritional coach, you get a fitness coach, and you go through that same process that they do, like 4 to 6 months of training, and maybe that includes wires. But then at the end of it, you get a film crew to shoot you doing a reel. There's tons of waivers and such, but you get to stunt coordination and that sort of thing. And so like you get to repeat some iconic fight scene or chase scene. Like there's the chase in Point Break, or the chase scenes in Bad Boys, with like being chased in Haywire.
The dojo kung fu scene from the first Matrix movie. That's mine. That's
yours?
Yeah. Damn straight. That is exactly the one I would want to recreate.
So you get supremely fit and healthy. You learn these new skill sets. you train yourself, and then they shoot you actually doing the real thing, and then you have a reel of you being a fucking action hero and a badass. I would pay a lot of money for that.
There's a Bob's Burgers episode about this.
Oh.
It's like a fitness like thing where it's like, come learn to be a stuntman, and they have you like jump through glass, like the fake glass windows and stuff, and they like light you on fire, and they're like, and then they're like, what was it like? Doing push-ups on fire will burn 20% more calories.
That's amazing.
It's hilarious. I mean, they're doing it as a joke, obviously, but I mean, I get it. I totally get it.
I would do it.
Did you see? Do you know who Kumail Nanjiani? I think I'm saying his name correctly. Do you know who he is? He's a stand-up comedian. We were talking about good romantic comedies. He wrote and starred in a semi-autobiographical movie called The Big Sick.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. That is like indie romantic comedy, really funny, really clever, very heartfelt. Anyway, he's going to be in a Marvel movie. And so they pulled a Chris Pratt with him.
Oh.
You should look him up because holy shit. Like, that's the kind of transformation. I'm like, you are working your ass off for this. But here's the awesome thing. He released a bunch of posts saying, like, after that got released, where he was like, you need to understand what I went through to do this. And he's like, this is not realistic for people who are like, oh, I'll teach you how to get a body like blah, blah, blah. No, you won't. Yeah. He's like, I have a chef. I have a nutritionist. I have a personal trainer. I have like people handling supplements. He's like there's a team of people that made me look this way.
Yeah.
And like, you can do a lot. You can get in really good shape if you get your habits in order and stuff. But like, I always think about it in terms of like people who can't lose weight. And it's like, well, if you were getting paid millions of dollars to star in a movie on the condition that you figure this shit out, you probably would figure that shit out.
Well, yeah. At least some amount of it more than you're figuring out now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I totally agree with you. I have not seen What's Love Got to Do with It, but I'm looking and I'm like, damn.
Yes.
And I think your example of her and Linda Hamilton, I still to this day would say Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, not the new one. Sure. Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 is one of the coolest character journeys in any movie, because she's like the damsel in distress in the first movie, and she's like, she puts up a fight, but she's like the one being rescued. And in the second movie, she is the most badass female like protagonist ever.
Yeah, Ripley maybe was
Ripley's great, but not no. Linda Hamilton is so badass in that, and I have so much respect for how the work she put into that and the way she pulls it off. Like, she comes across like someone who knew the world was going to end and decided to prepare herself for this. And like that transition from first movie to second movie, there's a reason why Terminator 2 is often held up as the greatest sequel of all time.
Yeah, well, and it's also the pivotal difference in different stories for female action heroes.
Mm-hmm.
She single-handedly was one of the first. So she did it first. Then there's Demi Moore and Angela Bassett are the three like pioneers of training your shit off to look amazingly athletic and pull off the things on camera. So like G.I. Jane.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to Hong Kong cinema, there is some other examples. Michelle Yeoh was doing her own stunts in the 80s.
Yeah.
And she was like giving Jackie Chan a run for his money. I mean, she's always been amazing. There's a thing where she does it herself. She jumps a motorcycle onto a moving train. She did it herself.
That's amazing.
I mean, you can see the behind the scenes shit. It's like, there's no way in hell they would do that kind of thing now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Also, Messiah, All of the men in that movie are fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who's in casting. It's like, let's just only have beautiful men in this movie.
Well, the other crappy movie that I watched,
yeah,
I affectionately refer to occasionally as the second gayest movie of all time, is the movie 300. And I don't mean that as any kind of insult. I mean, that movie is packed full of the sexiest, like oiled up, chiseled manliness, and it's like, it's not a good movie. Like, I watched it and I was like, oh, like structurally this doesn't even make any sense, and it's like the definition of style over substance. But god damn, like
Showgirls, style.
Yeah, I mean, that movie is like, to me, sexier than Magic Mike. And like, it's the same premise. I just love watching that movie with the idea in mind of all these like dude bros watching the movie and just being like, yeah, this is so badass, when there's that voice that's like, oh wow, those guys look really good. There's an amazing Netflix series called Big Mouth. Have you seen it?
I've seen the ads for it, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's so good. Like that show is one that I watched and I was like, this is doing God's work. And it's all about like kids like coming to grips with their sexuality and stuff you do in animation that you could not do with actual actors. But there's one episode that's about The Rock, and the whole premise is about how everybody who likes The Rock is like, they want to be him, but they also are attracted to him. And the whole episode at the end of it ends with the one gay character being like, the one like male gay character who's like, newsflash, everybody's gay. Like, sexuality is a spectrum. We're all a little bit gay or a lot gay.
Yeah.
I just love that like that show was the thing to go like smack.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm with The Rock. I have that challenge. Like, do I want to do him or be him? Yes. Soon that will be an augmented reality.
Yes. Is 300 or Brokeback Mountain more gay? 300. Absolutely. Like, no question.
I mean, there are more horses than that, right? There are horses than that.
Yes, there's horses too.
More horses. I think that's the scale of.
Yeah.
You can't just have oiled up man bodies. You also have oiled up horses, right? And
yeah.
I'm not making this up.
I do think there are more horses in 300, so it takes the cake in all ways. And on that note, are we done? It's almost 3:00. Has this been like an hour and a half now?
Exploration of movies that you can still enjoy and find meaning in, even if they're a little bit terrible.
Yeah, I think this was fun because we did get to talk about like watching shitty movies a little bit, which is kind of fun. Yeah, and still getting good things out of it.
Yeah, right on. Well, thank you.
Onward, amazing. Watch Colossal if you haven't seen it. Okay. Big Mouth is incredible. What are some of our other recommendations?
I think Messiah.
Okay, that one's on my list. Okay.
Also, Bex is pretty good.
Bex, yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay.
I think I really loved the music in it, actually.
That makes a huge difference. You know what I didn't see? I didn't see A Star Is Born, the new one. I heard it was great.
Oh.
Did you see it?
It's fucking good.
Was it Lady Gaga, right?
Yeah.
And
watch that. I really think you'll like
another guy. Yeah. Honestly, the problem for me is that you said this. Musicals hurt.
Yes.
I don't know why. Like, for me, I think it's that I want to be in it. Like, it makes me ache. Because I've been in musical theater, and the feeling of being in the show when it's all happening and everything's coming together and there's the audience and it's so magical and it's so intense that I think watching musicals is like it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
I've never listened to Hamilton, and I know like everybody's like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And I haven't been able to get myself to do it because I know I'm going to love it, but I also know that it's going to have this like, it's just not what's happening in my life right now. I mean, happening in anybody's life right now.
You might cry.
Yeah, I think I'll probably start crying before the movie even starts.
I have a feeling that if you decided specifically to focus on the themes around relationship and how relationship and connection and shared what it seems to be to have a shared purpose that is also. You're
talking about with A Star Is Born?
Yeah. Like with you and your partners, if you sit down together and talk about, like, with the frame, we're going to watch this. It happens to be a musical. That's where triggers usually live. And that this is about what happens when people who have a shared purpose and dream and vision for their lives.
I'll take it. Like, I mean, I wanted to get to it eventually, but I think your frame, I will add that to whatever my own unconscious comes up with.
Because the deal is, everybody, even when you have a shared passion and purpose, you're always at a different point in that journey. And what does it look like to be in a relationship with each other and support each other? And
that's what this tattoo means.
Cool.
Did I tell you? Have I told you this?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. That when my wife and I got married, there were 3 elements to the ceremony. There's more than this, but the ring represents the romantic nature of our relationship, which is removable. That's the idea that like our relationship could grow and maybe it won't always be the way that it is. But then we also had a part of the ceremony that was about becoming family. And then this one was about having a shared purpose. And this one was intentionally permanent, or as permanent as you can, relatively permanent.
Sure.
So yeah, shared purpose is a big deal for me in the context of relationship.
Yeah.
All right. I'll check that one out. Cool. Right. Are we good? I think we're good.
We've got homework assignments.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, Colossal, you've got Star Is Born. And I look forward to hanging out next Wednesday with all y'all.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. For anybody who's tuned in and listened. And I hope you are having a fabulous time. And I hope that you are allowing yourself to let go of your any kind of guilt or judgment that you have around watching movies and TV, because the main intention that we have here is to inspire people to really take as much pleasure and joy and suck as much value out of your stories as you can, because they can be these powerful transformational tools.
Yes. Go ahead. We'll see you next time. And until then, go forth and TV deeply.
Fabulous. I like it. Later.
Thanks.